Commander Thexvon stared at the sensor readings with his cold reptilian eyes. Something was moving through space toward their sector, something big and strange. The readings made no sense to him or his crew aboard the monitoring station Veltara. The energy signature was unlike anything they had seen before in their 300 years of watching the Outer Rim territories. "Commander, the object is still approaching," said his second officer, a nervous creature with too many arms. "It does not respond to our identification requests," Thexvon hissed softly. In all his years serving the Galactic Council, he had seen many primitive species attempt their first journey into space. Most died when their crude ships fell apart. The few who survived quickly learned to bow before the Council's might. This was how things had always been done. "Send the standard warning," Thexvon ordered. "Tell them to prepare for boarding and inspection. If they refuse, we destroy them." The ship that moved toward them was massive by the standards of new species. Most young civilizations sent small scout vessels on their first trips to the stars. This vessel was different. It moved with purpose and confidence that made Thexvon uneasy. Far away in the cold darkness of space, Captain Hyunwoo sat in his command chair aboard the UNS Incheon. The Korean officer had been in space for 2 years on a deep reconnaissance mission. His ship was one of only 12 warships that Earth had built, and it was coming home after mapping unknown sectors of the galaxy. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission," said Tae-ho from his communications station. The young man had been quiet for most of their journey, but now his voice carried concern. "It is in a language our computers do not recognize, but the translation. Software is working on it." Hyunwoo looked at his crew. Navigator So-min sat at her station, her fingers dancing over the controls as she calculated their position. Weapons Officer Dong-hyun monitored the tactical displays with the careful attention that had kept them alive in the unknown regions of space. Chief Engineer Yu-jin worked at her console, keeping their fusion reactors running at peak efficiency. "What does the message say?" Hyunwoo asked. Tae-ho frowned as he read the translation. "They are demanding that we stop our ship and prepare for boarding. They say we must submit to inspection by something called the Galactic Council. If we refuse, they will destroy us." The bridge fell silent. So-min looked up from her navigation console with wide eyes. "Captain, there are 12 ships moving toward us. They were hidden behind the moon of the third planet, but now they are coming out." Dong-hyun checked his weapons systems. "All ships are armed, sir. Their technology appears to be energy-based weapons and some kind of particle beam systems. They are larger than us, but their power readings are lower than expected." Yu-jin spoke from her engineering station. "Captain, our reactors are running at normal levels. If needed, I can push them to maximum output. These aliens do not seem to understand how much power we can generate." Hyunwoo considered the situation. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer. Unfortunately, their first contact was with beings who seemed to think they could give orders to anyone they met. "Tae-ho, open a channel," Hyunwoo said calmly. The communication link activated, and Hyunwoo spoke in a clear, steady voice. "This is Captain Hyunwoo of the United Nations ship Incheon. Are you threatening us?" The simple question traveled through space and was received by Commander Thexvon aboard the Veltara. The reptilian commander had heard many responses over the years. Some species begged for mercy. Others tried to negotiate. A few attempted to run away, but no one had ever asked if they were being threatened. The question was so unexpected that Thexvon did not know how to respond. In the background, he could hear the nervous chatter of his bridge crew. They had never encountered a species that responded to council authority with a question. "Tell them," Thexvon finally said, "that resistance is futile. They will submit to council authority or face the consequences." Aboard the Incheon, Tae-ho relayed the alien response. Hyunwoo listened and then looked around at his crew. Each of them had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might never return to Earth. They had faced the unknown for 2 years and survived. Now they faced something new. "So-min, what is our tactical situation?" Hyunwoo asked. The navigator checked her displays. 12 ships in a standard encirclement pattern. They are trying to block all escape routes. Their formation suggests they have done this many times before. Dong-hyun, weapon status? "All systems are ready, Captain. Our kinetic barriers are online. Plasma cannons are charged, and our targeting computers have locked onto all 12 vessels simultaneously. Hyunwoo nodded. The human ship had capabilities that these aliens probably could not imagine. Earth's military had learned from centuries of warfare that the best defense was often a strong offense. They had built their ships to fight, not just to explore. Yujin, can we outrun them? Yes, sir. Our engines are more efficient than theirs appear to be. But, Captain, if we run now, they will follow us back toward Earth. Do we want to lead them to our home? It was a good point. Hyunwoo had been thinking the same thing. If these aliens believed they could threaten any ship they encountered, they might decide that Earth itself was a threat to be eliminated. Taeho, send another message, Hyunwoo said. Tell them that we are peaceful explorers returning to our home system. We have no hostile intentions, but we will defend ourselves if attacked. Suggest that we meet to discuss this situation calmly. The message was sent, and the crew waited for a response. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then Commander Thexvan's reply came back. The Council does not negotiate with inferior species. You will submit immediately or be destroyed. This is your final warning. Hyunwoo sighed. He had hoped for a peaceful first contact with alien life. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for generations. Scientists and diplomats had written countless papers about how such a meeting might go. None of them had imagined it would begin with threats and demands for submission. Captain, So-min said quietly, they are moving into attack formation. On the tactical display, the alien ships were repositioning themselves. Their weapons were powering up, and their targeting systems were focusing on the Incheon. It was clear that they intended to make good on their threats. All hands, this is the captain, Hyunwoo announced over the ship's communication system. We are about to engage in combat with hostile alien vessels. This is not what we wanted, but it is what we face. Remember your training, trust your equipment, and protect each other. We are a long way from home, but we carry Earth's hopes with us. Dong-hyun armed the weapons systems. So-min plotted evasive maneuvers. Yujin pushed the reactors to full power. Taeho prepared to jam the alien communications. Each crew member focused on their duties, but all of them understood the significance of this moment. They were about to fight the first battle between humanity and alien life. The outcome would determine not just their own survival, but possibly the future of both species. In the cold darkness of space, two different ideas of civilization were about to clash. The alien ships completed their attack formation and began to close in on the lone human vessel. Commander Thexvan was confident of victory. After all, his forces outnumbered the strange ship 12-1. In his experience, superior numbers always won, but Commander Thexvan had never fought humans before. He did not understand that humans had spent their entire evolutionary history as predators. He did not know that they had survived by hunting creatures larger and stronger than themselves. Most importantly, he did not realize that humans had a saying about being outnumbered. The odds were even. The alien ships moved like hunters who had cornered their prey. Admiral Kethmore commanded the Council fleet from his flagship, a massive vessel that had seen 100 battles against primitive species. The insectoid admiral clicked his mandibles in satisfaction as he watched his ships surround the strange vessel. All ships, prepare to fire, Kethmore commanded. Target their engines first. We want them alive for questioning. The 12 Council ships powered their weapons and aimed at the human vessel. Their energy signatures spiked as particle beams and plasma cannons charged to full power. This was a familiar routine for them. They had done this hundreds of times to hundreds of different species. Aboard the Incheon, Weapons Officer Dong-hyun watched his targeting displays with calm focus. His fingers moved across the control panels with practiced ease. Unlike the aliens, who were aiming at one target, Dong-hyun had locked onto all 12 ships at the same time. Target locks confirmed on all hostile vessels, he reported to Captain Hyunwoo. Plasma cannons ready, kinetic barriers active, point defense systems online. Captain Hyunwoo studied the tactical display. The alien formation was textbook perfect for dealing with a primitive vessel that would try to run or hide, but it had a critical weakness that these aliens did not seem to understand. By surrounding his ship, they had put themselves in each other's firing lines. So-min, execute pattern Delta on my mark, Hyunwoo ordered. Navigator. So-min nodded. Pattern Delta was a combat maneuver that human pilots had developed during Earth's space wars. It involved using the enemy's own formation against them. Her hands hovered over the controls, ready to push the Incheon's engines to their limits. "Yu-jin, I need maximum power," Hyun-woo said. Chief Engineer Yu-jin smiled grimly. "Captain, our reactors are producing more energy than all 12 of their ships combined. These aliens seem to have forgotten how to build proper power systems." It was true. The Council species had achieved faster-than-light travel thousands of years ago, but they had also become comfortable and lazy. They used the same technology their ancestors had developed, never pushing boundaries or trying new approaches. Nuclear fusion was considered primitive by their standards. Humanity, on the other hand, had perfected fusion technology beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Incheon's reactors could have powered entire alien cities. All of that energy was now focused on keeping one ship alive in the middle of enemy territory. "All ships fire!" Admiral Kethmore commanded. 12 alien vessels opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams and particle streams lanced through space toward the human ship. The aliens expected to see the vessel's shields collapse and its hull breach under the concentrated attack. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ship's kinetic barriers absorbed the incoming fire and converted the energy into power for its own systems. The aliens' weapons were actually making their targets stronger. "Impossible!" Admiral Kethmore chittered. "No ship can absorb that much energy." On the Incheon's bridge, Dong-hyun watched his power levels climb as the alien weapons fed energy into his ship's systems. "Their weapons are actually helping us, Captain. Our barriers are converting their attacks into additional power." "Execute Pattern Delta now," Hyun-woo ordered. Somin fired the engines and sent the Incheon into a complex spiral maneuver. The ship twisted through space like a dancer, moving in ways that the alien formation could not counter. As it moved, Dong-hyun began firing. The human plasma cannons were different from anything the aliens had encountered. Instead of simple energy beams, they fired concentrated streams of matter heated to the temperature of a star's core. Each shot carried enough energy to vaporize an asteroid. The first alien ship died in seconds. Dong-hyun's plasma stream punched through its shields and hull like they were made of paper. The vessel exploded in a brilliant flash that lit up the surrounding space. "Evasive maneuvers!" Admiral Kethmore screamed, but it was too late. The Incheon continued its deadly dance through space. Somin's navigation was perfect, keeping the ship moving too fast for the aliens to target effectively. Meanwhile, Dong-hyun systematically destroyed one enemy vessel after another. The second ship tried to run, but a plasma burst caught it in the engine section. The third attempted to ram the human vessel, only to be cut in half by a sustained beam. The fourth and fifth ships collided with each other when they tried to avoid the Incheon's fire. Chief Engineer Yu-jin monitored the ship's systems as they performed far beyond their design specifications. The fusion reactors were running hot, but they were stable. The weapon systems were cycling faster than they had ever been tested. Everything was working perfectly. "How are they doing this?" one of Admiral Kethmore's officers asked in panic. Truth was simple, but the aliens could not understand it. Humans had evolved as persistence hunters. Their ancestors had chased prey across vast distances, never giving up, always adapting their tactics. This genetic memory lived on in their descendants among the stars. More importantly, humans had learned warfare through necessity. Earth's nations had fought countless wars, each one teaching them new ways to kill and survive. They had built their space navy with one purpose: to protect humanity from any threat, no matter how large or advanced. The sixth and seventh alien ships fell to coordinated fire from the Incheon's multiple weapon systems. Dong-hyun had learned to use the ship's point defense lasers as offensive weapons, cutting through enemy hulls with surgical precision. "They are using primitive projectile weapons, too," an alien gunner reported as he watched kinetic rounds punch through his ship's armor. The aliens had long ago abandoned kinetic weapons as crude and inefficient. They preferred clean energy weapons that looked impressive and required advanced technology. They had forgotten that sometimes the simplest solution was the most effective. A chunk of metal traveling at a significant fraction of light speed did not care about energy shields or advanced armor. It went through them like they were not there. The eighth ship tried to retreat, but Somin had anticipated this. Her navigation plot brought the Incheon around in a tight arc that intercepted the fleeing vessel. Dong-hyun's plasma cannon ended its escape attempt permanently. Admiral Kethmore found himself commanding only 4 ships out of his original 12. The battle had lasted less than 4 minutes, and he was losing badly. This was supposed to be a simple intimidation mission against a primitive species. "All remaining ships, focus fire on their reactor signatures," he ordered desperately. The surviving alien vessels concentrated their attacks on the Incheon's engine section. Their sensors had identified the massive energy signatures coming from the human ship's power plant. If they could destroy the reactors, they might still win. But Yu-jin had anticipated this tactic. The Incheon's engineering section was the most heavily armored part of the ship. Multiple redundant systems protected the fusion reactors. Even if the aliens succeeded in damaging one reactor, 3 others would keep the ship fighting. Their targeting is predictable, Dong-hyun observed as he plotted his next attack. "They are concentrating fire on our strongest point." This was another difference between human and alien thinking. The Council species had been dominant for so long that they fought in predictable patterns. They used the same tactics that had worked for thousands of years against weaker opponents. Humans, however, had spent their entire history fighting each other. They knew that predictability in combat was death. Every human military officer learned to think like their enemy and then do something unexpected. The 9th alien ship exploded when Dong-hyun fired a spread of kinetic projectiles at its bridge section. The 10th died when So-min brought the Incheon close enough for point-blank plasma fire. The 11th ship suffered a reactor breach when a human projectile penetrated its core. Admiral Kethmore's flagship was the last survivor. His bridge crew stared at their displays in shock and terror. They had just watched 11 ships die in minutes. Nothing in their experience had prepared them for this. "Surrender!" Admiral Kethmore transmitted. "We surrender!" On the Incheon's bridge, Tae-ho received the surrender message and looked at Captain Hyun-woo. The human captain considered the request for a moment. His ship was undamaged, his crew was unharmed, and his enemy was beaten. "Tell him to withdraw immediately," Hyun-woo said. "If he tries to follow us or attack any other ships, we will finish what he started." Tae-ho broadcast the message on all frequencies. His transmission was picked up not just by Admiral Kethmore, but by monitoring stations throughout the sector. Word of the battle would spread quickly through the galactic communication networks. Admiral Kethmore's ship limped away from the battlefield, its hull scarred by near misses from human weapons. The insectoid admiral could barely comprehend what had happened. 12 council ships had been destroyed by a single vessel from an unknown species. As the alien ship disappeared into hyperspace, Captain Hyun-woo looked around at his crew. They had just fought humanity's first battle against alien life. They had won decisively, but he knew this was only the beginning. "Tae-ho, prepare a message for Earth Command," Hyun-woo ordered. "Tell them we have made contact with alien life. Tell them we were attacked and we defended ourselves. And tell them to prepare for visitors." The message would take months to reach Earth. News of the battle traveled faster than Admiral Kethmore's damaged ship. By the time he reached the nearest council outpost, half the galaxy had already heard whispers about the humans. Communication networks buzzed with impossible stories about a single ship destroying an entire council fleet. Most species dismissed the reports as rumors or propaganda. The Galactic Council had ruled for 10,000 years. No single ship could challenge their authority. It was unthinkable. But in the darker corners of the galaxy, where enslaved species whispered in secret, the news carried hope. For the first time in millennia, someone had fought the Council and won. Captain Hyun-woo made a decision that would change galactic history. Instead of returning to Earth immediately, he ordered the Incheon to visit the nearest inhabited system. If the galaxy was controlled by these Council beings, he needed to understand what humanity was facing. "Set course for the trading station at Nexus Prime," he told Navigator So-min. "According to our star charts, it should be 3 days away at maximum speed." So-min plotted the course while studying the alien star maps they had captured from the destroyed Council ships. "Captain, this station appears to be neutral territory. Multiple species use it for trade and commerce." Chief Engineer Yu-jin analyzed the technical data from their battle. "Sir, I have been studying their technology. These aliens are using power systems that are thousands of years old. They have stopped innovating. They rely on tradition instead of progress. Weapons Officer Dong Hyun nodded in agreement. Their tactics were outdated, too. They fought like they expected us to run or surrender. They have never faced an enemy that fights back effectively. Communications specialist Tae-ho had been monitoring alien transmissions. Captain, I am picking up increased chatter on their communication networks. Word of our battle is spreading rapidly. Some of the messages sound excited rather than afraid. The Incheon jumped to hyperspace and began its journey to Nexus Prime. During the 3-day trip, the crew prepared for their first encounter with galactic civilization. They studied alien languages, reviewed diplomatic protocols, and maintained their weapons systems. Nexus Prime was unlike anything humans had imagined. The massive space station orbited a gas giant, its metal corridors housing millions of beings from dozens of different species. Ships from across the galaxy docked at its ports, trading goods and information. When the Incheon approached the station, traffic control contacted them immediately. The alien controller's voice carried a mixture of curiosity and fear. Unknown. Vessel, identify yourself and state your business at Nexus Prime. This is Captain Hyun-woo of the United Nations ship Incheon, came the reply. We request permission to dock for diplomatic purposes and cultural exchange. There was a long pause before the controller responded. You are the humans? Yes. Another pause, even longer this time. Then, Docking Bay 7 is cleared for your arrival. Welcome to Nexus Prime. As the Incheon maneuvered toward the docking bay, its crew could see dozens of alien ships keeping their distance. Some were military vessels with weapons trained on the human ship. Others were civilian craft whose crews had come to watch humanity's arrival. The docking procedure went smoothly, and Captain Hyun-woo led a small team onto the station. So-min and Tai-ho accompanied him, while Dong-hyun and Yu-jin remained aboard to guard the ship. Nexus Prime's main corridor was a marvel of engineering. The ceiling stretched high above their heads, and artificial gravity kept beings of different physiologies comfortable. Hundreds of alien species moved through the space, conducting business or simply observing the newcomers. Many of the aliens stared at the humans with obvious curiosity. Some whispered among themselves in languages that Tae-ho's translation device could barely interpret. A few approached the humans directly, offering greetings or asking questions. You are the ones who defeated Kethmore's fleet? Asked a tall, thin being with blue skin and large eyes. We defended ourselves when attacked, Captain Hyun-woo replied carefully. The alien nodded enthusiastically. My people have waited 3 generations for someone to stand up to the council. They destroyed our homeworld because we refused to give them our children for their labor camps. This was the first time the humans had heard about the council's true nature. As they walked through the station, more aliens approached them with similar stories. Species after species had been conquered, enslaved, or exterminated by the council's forces. They tell us it is for our own good, explained a creature that looked like a walking tree. They say they protect us from ourselves. But protection means slavery, and peace means silence. Tae-ho documented everything he heard. The scale of the council's oppression was staggering. Entire civilizations had been reduced to servants. Planets had been strip-mined for resources. Billions of sentient beings lived under the council's boot. Why does no one fight back? So-min asked a group of alien merchants. With what? Replied a being covered in scales. They control the technology. They control the weapons. They control everything. Those who resist are destroyed completely. Their worlds are burned. Their species are forgotten. But even as they spoke, the aliens' attitudes were changing. Word of the human victory had spread throughout the station. For the first time in generations, someone had proven that the council could be beaten. Yu-jin had remained aboard the Incheon, but she was not idle. Using the station's communication systems, she began sharing basic human technology with alien engineers and scientists. Her fusion reactor designs were studied by beings who had forgotten that such power was possible. Your energy systems are incredible, said an alien engineer whose species had been enslaved for 2,000 years. We could build these reactors ourselves if we had the right materials. Then we will help you get the materials, Yu-jin replied. Meanwhile, Dong-hyun had been approached by a group of young aliens whose homeworlds had been conquered by the council. They wanted to learn how to fight back against their oppressors. We have tried rebellion before, explained a warrior from a reptilian species, but we do not know how to fight against superior technology and numbers. Dong Hyun began teaching them human military tactics. Not the technology, but the thinking behind effective combat. How to use terrain and timing. How to turn enemy strengths into weaknesses. How to fight when outnumbered and outgunned. The key is not to fight the battle they want, he explained. Fight the battle you can win. As the humans spent more time on Nexus Prime, their presence had an unexpected effect. Species that had never cooperated began working together. The simple fact that someone had successfully challenged the Council's authority changed everything. But the Council was not sitting idle. Supreme Admiral Vorthak of the crystalline Nexari Imperium received reports about the human activities on Nexus Prime. The aged commander had served the Council for 5 centuries, and he understood the threat. These humans represented. They are not just a military problem, he told his staff during an emergency meeting. They are spreading ideas that could destroy our entire civilization. The ideas were simple but revolutionary. Every sentient being had value. Technology should be shared, not hoarded. Cooperation was stronger than domination. The right to choose one's own destiny was more important than maintaining order. These concepts spread through Nexus Prime like wildfire. Species that had been enemies for generations began talking to each other. Engineers shared knowledge across racial boundaries. Warriors from different worlds trained together. Sir, we are receiving reports from across the galaxy. An intelligence officer reported to Admiral Vorthak. Resistance movements are increasing their activities. They are claiming inspiration from these humans. Admiral Vorthak made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Mobilize the Grand Fleet. We will destroy these humans and anyone who supports them. This rebellion ends now. The Grand Fleet was the Council's ultimate weapon. 1,000 ships, crewed by their most loyal species, armed with technology that had conquered hundreds of worlds. It had never been defeated in its 3,000-year history. On Nexus Prime, intelligence networks picked up news of the fleet's mobilization. A resistance leader named Quintar, a member of the aquatic Sethari people, contacted Captain Hyun-woo. Directly! Captain, you must leave immediately, she warned. The Grand Fleet is coming, and they will destroy this entire station to eliminate you. Hyun-woo considered the warning, but he had already made his decision. We are not running. If they want a fight, they will get one. You are brave, but you are only one ship, Quintar protested. No, Hyun-woo replied, looking around at the thousands of aliens who had gathered to support them. We are not alone anymore. The word went out across Nexus Prime and beyond. The Council's Grand Fleet was coming to destroy the humans and anyone who supported them. For the first time in galactic history, multiple species began preparing to fight back together. Ships that had never flown in formation began practicing coordinated maneuvers. Engineers from different worlds worked together to upgrade weapons and shields. Warriors who had once been enemies trained side by side. The galaxy was waking up, and it was angry. 10,000 years of oppression were about to meet humanity's simple but powerful idea that freedom was worth fighting for. Admiral Vorthak's Grand Fleet jumped into hyperspace. The message spread through secret channels that the Council had never discovered. Resistance cells that had operated in isolation for centuries suddenly found themselves connected to a growing network of rebellion. The human philosophy was simple, enough for any species to understand. Freedom was not something to be granted by rulers, but something that belonged to every thinking being. Quintar coordinated the resistance from her hidden base beneath the oceans of her homeworld. The Sethari leader had spent 50 years fighting the Council's occupation, watching her people slowly die as their oceans were poisoned by mining operations. Now, for the first time, she had hope. The humans have changed everything, she transmitted to her network of contacts across the galaxy. They have proven that the Council can be beaten. More importantly, they have shown us how to work together. The intelligence reports that reached Captain Hyun-woo painted a picture of galactic oppression that was even worse than he had imagined. The Council did not just rule through fear and superior technology. They had systematically destroyed the ability of subject species to cooperate with each other. They keep us isolated, explained a scholar from the Vorthak Empire, whose homeworld had been conquered 3,000 years ago. Each species deals with the Council separately. We are never allowed to form alliances or share technology. This keeps us weak and dependent. Tejo compiled the intelligence reports in his communication center aboard the Incheon. The scale of the Council's control was staggering. They had turned scientific advancement into a crime. They had made cooperation between species illegal. They had even rewritten the histories of conquered worlds to make resistance seem impossible. Sir, I am receiving transmission logs from monitoring stations across the galaxy, he reported to Captain Hyunwoo. The Council has been tracking our conversations with the resistance groups. They know exactly how much support we have gathered. Navigator. Somin analyzed the tactical situation from her station. Captain, the Grand Fleet consists of 1,000 ships. Our intelligence sources indicate they are the most advanced vessels in the Council's arsenal. Each ship is larger and more heavily armed than the vessels we fought before. Chief Engineer Yu Jin had spent the past week upgrading the Incheon systems and helping resistance engineers understand human technology. Sir, I have been working with technicians from 17 different species. They are incredibly talented, but they have been denied access to advanced materials and manufacturing techniques for generations. What can we do about that? Hyunwoo asked. We can teach them to build what they need, Yu Jin replied. Human fusion technology is actually simpler than what the Council uses. It is more efficient because we focused on practical results instead of impressive displays of power. This was typical of the difference between human and alien approaches to technology. The Council species had developed their science during an era of peace and abundance. They built devices that were complex and beautiful, but they had forgotten the lessons that humans learned during their violent history. The best technology was the technology that worked when everything else failed. Weapons Officer Dong Hyun had been training resistance fighters in human combat doctrine. The aliens were eager students, but they had to unlearn thousands of years of conditioning. They have been taught that superior numbers always win, he explained to Captain Hyunwoo. They have been taught that advanced technology cannot be defeated. They have been taught that resistance is futile. Breaking these beliefs is harder than teaching them new tactics. But the training was working. Across the galaxy, resistance cells were learning to fight like humans. They studied mobility and coordination. They learned to use their enemies, predictability against them. Most importantly, they learned that victory was possible if they were willing to pay the price. The Grand Fleet's approach was detected by monitoring stations throughout the sector. Supreme Admiral Vorthak commanded from his flagship, a massive vessel that was older than some civilizations. The crystalline being had never lost a battle in his 5 centuries of service. Intelligence reports indicate that approximately 200 rebel ships have gathered at Nexus Prime, his tactical officer reported. They appear to be a mixture of converted civilian vessels and outdated military craft. Admiral Vorthak studied the tactical displays with satisfaction. 200 ships against 1,000 was not even a fair fight. The rebels had courage, but courage without proper technology was meaningless. When we arrive, destroy the human ship first, he ordered. Once their symbol is gone, the rebellion will collapse. These species have never been able to maintain unity without strong leadership. But Admiral Vorthak was making the same mistake that Admiral Kethmore had made. He was fighting the last war instead of the current one. The resistance was not dependent on the humans for leadership. The humans had taught them something more valuable. They had taught them to think for themselves. At Nexus Prime, Captain Hyunwoo met with the resistance commanders in the station's main conference room. Representatives from dozens of species had gathered to plan their defense. It was the first time in galactic history that so many different civilizations had worked together as equals. We cannot win a conventional battle against the Grand Fleet, Quintar stated bluntly. They have superior numbers and technology. We need a different approach. Then we do not fight a conventional battle, Hyunwoo replied. We fight the battle we can win. The plan they developed was unlike anything the Council had faced before. Instead of meeting the Grand Fleet in a single massive engagement, the resistance would fragment into small groups. Each group would have a specific target and objective. The human ship would serve as a mobile command center, coordinating the different attacks. The Council expects us to fight for the station, explained a Vorthak commander. They will position their fleet to prevent us from escaping. But what if we are not trying to escape? What if we are trying to surround them? Yujin had spent days studying the technical specifications of Council ships. Their vessels are designed for intimidation and overwhelming firepower. They are not built for close-quarters combat or rapid maneuvering. If we can force them to fight at short range, our smaller ships will have advantages. Dong-hyun added tactical details to the plan. Human doctrine emphasizes combined arms and mutual support. We will give each resistance group specific objectives that support the overall mission. No one fights alone. The resistance fleet that assembled at Nexus Prime was a sight that the galaxy had never seen before. Ships from species that had been enemies for millennia flew in formation together. Crews that spoke different languages and breathed different atmospheres worked toward a common goal. "This is impossible," transmitted one of Admiral Vorthak's scouts when he observed the rebel preparations. "These species hate each other. They have been fighting for thousands of years." But hatred was a luxury that the oppressed could no longer afford. The humans had taught them that survival required cooperation. More importantly, they had shown them that cooperation could lead to victory. When the Grand Fleet arrived at Nexus Prime, Admiral Vorthak was confident of easy victory. His 1,000 ships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready. The sight of so much military power had ended rebellions before they could begin. "This is Supreme Admiral Vorthak of the Galactic Council," he broadcast on all frequencies. "Surrender immediately and you will be allowed to live as slaves. Resist and your species will be exterminated." The response came not from Captain Hyun-woo, but from Quintar, speaking for the entire resistance. "We have lived as slaves for 10,000 years. We have watched our children die in your mines and our worlds burn for your profit. Today, we choose something different. Today, we choose to fight." The Battle of Nexus Prime began with the Grand Fleet's opening salvo. 1,000 ships fired simultaneously, their combined firepower enough to destroy entire planets. Energy beams and particle streams lit up space as they lanced toward the resistance positions. But the resistance was not where the Council expected them to be. Instead of defending the station in a static formation, they had scattered throughout the system. The Grand Fleet's devastating first strike hit mostly empty space. "Impossible!" Admiral Vorthak snarled. "Where are they?" His answer came from a dozen different directions at once. Resistance ships appeared from behind asteroids, from the shadow of the gas giant, from the sensor blind spots that Yujin had identified in the Council ship designs. Each attack group struck at a different target, forcing the Grand Fleet to divide its attention. The Incheon led the primary assault group directly at Admiral Vorthak's flagship. Captain Hyun-woo had decided that the best way to break the enemy's morale was to threaten their command structure. If the Grand Fleet's leader fell, the rest might lose their will to fight. "All ships focus fire on the human vessel," Admiral Vorthak ordered. "Destroy them at any cost." But the resistance had learned from human tactics. As the Grand Fleet concentrated on the Incheon, other attack groups struck at their flanks and rear. Council ships found themselves fighting on multiple fronts simultaneously, unable to bring their superior firepower to bear effectively. Yujin pushed the Incheon's reactors beyond their design. 6 months after the Battle of Nexus Prime, the galaxy was unrecognizable. The Council's authority had collapsed across half their former territory as species after species declared independence. The communication networks buzzed with reports of successful rebellions, liberated worlds, and the formation of new alliances between former enemies. Captain Hyun-woo stood on the observation deck of Nexus Prime, which had been transformed into the headquarters of the Free Galaxy Alliance. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see ships from dozens of species working together to repair battle damage and construct new facilities. It was a sight that would have been impossible just months earlier. "Captain, the latest. Reports from Earth have arrived," communications specialist Tae-ho announced as he approached with a datapad. The young officer had become the primary liaison between the human crew and the growing alliance of free worlds. Hyun-woo read the message with interest. Earth's government had been monitoring the galactic situation through long-range sensors and communication intercepts. After months of debate, they had reached a decision about humanity's role in galactic affairs. "They are sending the rest of the fleet," Hyun-woo told his assembled crew. Navigator So-min, weapons officer Dong-hyun, and Chief Engineer Yujin had gathered for their daily briefing. All 11 remaining ships of the United Nations Space Navy will arrive within the month. 11 ships to patrol half the galaxy. Dong-hyun observed with a slight smile. The Council probably has more ships than that defending their breakfast. Meetings. It was true. Humanity's entire space navy consisted of only 12 vessels, including the Incheon. They had accidentally sparked a galactic revolution with a force that most alien civilizations would consider a small patrol squadron. But those 11 ships represent something more important than military power, So Min pointed out. They represent Earth's commitment to the principles we have been fighting for. Yu Jin nodded in agreement. The resistance movements do not need our ships. They need our knowledge and our example. We have shown them that cooperation works better than domination. The transformation of galactic civilization was proceeding faster than anyone had expected. Species that had been isolated for millennia were sharing technology and resources. The rigid hierarchy that the Council had maintained was being replaced by voluntary associations based on mutual benefit. Quintar had emerged as one of the primary leaders of the Free Galaxy Alliance. The Sithari commander had a natural talent for diplomacy that complemented her military experience. She had spent weeks traveling between liberated worlds, helping new governments establish themselves and organize their defenses. The most remarkable change is in the younger generation, she reported during a meeting with the human crew. Children who grew up under Council rule are learning to think for themselves. They ask questions that their parents never dared to voice. This was perhaps the most significant aspect of the revolution. The Council had not just ruled through force, but through cultural conditioning that made resistance seem impossible. Breaking that conditioning was harder than winning battles, but it was happening throughout the former Council territories. The scientific and technological renaissance was equally impressive. With the restrictions on research and development removed, alien scientists were making breakthroughs that had been impossible under Council rule. Yu Jin found herself coordinating research projects that involved dozens of species working together. They are incredibly creative once they are allowed to experiment freely, she explained to Captain Hyun-woo. The Council's insistence on using only approved technologies held back their development for thousands of years. The fusion reactor designs that Yu Jin had shared were being adapted and improved by alien engineers. Some species had developed variations that were more efficient than the original human designs. Others had found ways to miniaturize the technology for use in smaller vessels. This is how progress should work, Yu Jin continued. Ideas shared freely, improvements built on previous work, everyone contributing their knowledge for the common. Good. Dong-hyun had been equally busy training the Alliance's new defense forces. The military doctrine he had developed emphasized flexibility and coordination over raw firepower. It was designed to prevent any single faction from dominating the others. The key insight is that military strength should serve political goals, not replace them, he explained to a gathering of Alliance commanders. We fight to protect freedom, not to impose our will on others. This philosophy was being tested as the Alliance encountered holdout Council forces. Some alien species remained loyal to the old order, either from fear or genuine belief in Council superiority. The Alliance had to prove that it could defend itself without becoming the new oppressor. Tae-ho had established a communication network that connected the free worlds more effectively than the Council's old systems had. His design emphasized redundancy and independence, ensuring that no single authority could control the flow of information. The Council maintained power partly by controlling what people knew, he explained. Our network is designed to prevent anyone from doing that again, including us. The arrival of Earth's main fleet created a sensation throughout the Alliance territories. The 11 ships were not particularly large or impressive by galactic standards, but they represented something unprecedented. A spacefaring civilization that had joined the galaxy as equals rather than conquerors. Captain Park Min-ho of the UNS Busan became the senior Earth representative to the Alliance, while Captain Hyun-woo remained in command of exploration and first contact operations. The division of responsibilities reflected Earth's commitment to cooperation rather than dominance. We are not here to lead the Alliance, Captain Park announced during his first address to the Alliance Council. We are here to participate in it as equal partners. Humanity has as much to learn from you as you have learned from us. This approach contrasted sharply with how previous powerful civilizations had behaved. The Council species had always insisted on hierarchical relationships with themselves at the top. Humanity's willingness to accept equality was revolutionary in a galaxy accustomed to domination. The Alliance's first major test came when a council delegation arrived under a flag of truce. The surviving council leadership had finally accepted that their old methods would no longer work. They requested negotiations to end the fighting and establish new relationships. The delegation was led by Chancellor Mordeth of the Hegemony Council, a being so ancient that few could remember when he had first taken office. He had ruled various parts of the galaxy for over 2,000 years, and the concept of voluntary cooperation was almost impossible for him to understand. "We offer you autonomy within the council framework," he proposed during the opening session of negotiations. "Your species will be granted special status with reduced tribute obligations and limited self-governance." The Alliance representatives exchanged glances before Quintar responded. "Chancellor, I do not think you understand our position. We are not seeking better terms of slavery. We are demanding complete independence." "Independence is chaos," Chancellor Mordeth replied. "Without central authority, you will fight among yourselves. Without our guidance, you will destroy each other. This has always been the way of primitive species." Captain Hyunwoo leaned forward in his chair. "Chancellor, with respect, you're central. Authority has been fighting wars for 10,000 years. Your guidance has led to the deaths of billions. Perhaps it is time to try something different." "And what do you propose instead?" the Chancellor asked. "We propose what we have already built," Captain Park replied. "Voluntary cooperation between equals, shared resources and knowledge, mutual defense without mutual domination, the right of every species to determine its own destiny." The negotiations continued for weeks, but it became clear that the two sides were operating from completely different assumptions about how civilization should function. The Council could not imagine a galaxy without hierarchy and control. The Alliance could no longer accept a galaxy with them. The final breakthrough came when several more Council species declared independence and joined the Alliance. The economic and military advantages of cooperation were becoming impossible to ignore. Even species that had been loyal to the Council for millennia were beginning to question whether the old ways were worth preserving. "Very well, Chancellor," Mordeth finally conceded. "We will withdraw to our core territories and leave the outer sectors to your experiment. But when your alliance collapses in chaos and war, do not expect our help to restore order." "If our alliance collapses, we will build something better from the pieces," Quintar replied. "That is what free beings do. They learn from their mistakes and try again." The formal end of the Council War was marked by the signing of the Nexus Accords, which established the boundaries between Alliance and Council territories. The galaxy was effectively divided into two regions: the Alliance worlds, where cooperation was the primary organizing principle, and the Council core, where traditional hierarchy continued. As Captain Hyunwoo reviewed the final documents, he reflected on how much had changed since the Incheon's first encounter with alien life.